Hi there, welcome to another painting tutorial. So in this lesson, we're going to paint some fall pansies. So let's get started. And we can start with a fairly large size filbert brush. Let's go with the size 11. But if you have like an 8 or a 10, that will work as well. And we want this pansy over here to be a light orange shade. So let's make a light orange wash. And I have this from my last project. But to make this color, you just want to take a orangey red shade and then mix a little bit of yellow ochre in there. And then I'm just going to put this in along all the petals. And make sure that you're using a paper that does allow for you to use water. Just get the edge of the brush up along the edge of these petals and then bring it towards the center. And do that for the bottom one. You can kind of move your hand or turn your paper so that you can get the correct angle. And try not to get a lot of color in the center here because this is kind of a white color. So try not to get a lot of pigment on that area. And add a little more water if you need to. And blend. Okay, so that one's the orange, and then the other one we're going to do a yellow color. So we have our beautiful lemon yellow straight from the tube, and we can just add a little bit of water to that and kind of repeat that process. If I was doing this on my own, I would turn my paper because that would allow me to get really close to that edge. So as you're following along, I encourage you to do that. Okay, and then here. And you can copy this sketch. You can take a screenshot and copy it. This is kind of a composition I came up with on my own. So I don't really have like a reference photo for this one. Okay, so that's our initial wash. And now I want to go back and add a little bit of darker shade color for some definition. So for the darker shadow color for the yellow, I'm going to use some of this yellow ochre and maybe mix it with a little bit of the lemon yellow and a little bit of water. And for this, I just want to kind of add a shadow. So look at a reference photo to kind of see where the flower is darker. And usually it's kind of in the corners, or if this petal is in the back, it probably has more shadow on it. Usually the center of the petals are lighter. Okay, so that's just a nice shadow. And then let's do that same thing for this side. And for that, I could do a little bit of yellow ochre with that orange. And not too much of it though. So I could use a Burt Sienna, but I want to try to keep it kind of bright. So I don't want to get too much of a brown in there. So let's see how that shows up. So that's a pretty good shadow color. So again, I'm just putting it where I think a shadow might be on the flower, putting it in, and then rinsing my brush, and then taking that damp brush and carefully blending that in. Maybe got a little bit too much water. And acrylic paint, it just dries so quickly, so you want to kind of be fast when you're doing something like this. Okay, so you can see that makes the flowers look a little bit more three-dimensional. And then let's get a smaller brush I'm going to switch to a size 2 filbert, and I want to paint some of this color on the inside. So we'll take some white and mix up a little bit of green, and that's kind of how it's appearing to me. So then I'm just going to pop those in the center there. And I kind of put it in my sketch. And then I'm just going to kind of flare it out and maybe just add a straight titanium white and just kind of make it look like that's the center of the flower, almost as if you could go inside of it, like a little bee or an insect. Okay, and kind of let that dry. All right, so this is pretty quick and simple. So we have that base, and now for the pansy, we want to add some of these darker colors. So I'm gonna mix that up, and I'll probably start with, maybe we'll switch to a size 6 filbert. It's a good medium size brush. So I want to put a dark, intense plum, almost black color into this one. So what we could do to mix that color, we could take a little bit of black and let's put in this magenta color and see what that gives us. A black and a magenta. And just kind of test it on your paper. And that's looking kind of pretty. You can see it's kind of has that purple tone, and I do like that. So I think we're gonna go with this color. All right, so let's maybe put the darker tone in the back here. And we're just getting really close to the edges. For this one, I almost want the petal to go all the way, to be all the way covered up. And it's okay that it's covering up that yellow underneath. It's gonna help us not have like very bright white spots poking through. Okay, so I think that looks pretty. And then let's add a little bit more of this intense color to the bottom here. Kind of making like a heart shape upside down. And then let's put maybe over on this side and on this side. So I'm looking at a reference photo here and I'm just seeing kind of what pattern the flower makes. I'm going to rinse that off and I'm going to switch to the larger filbert. This is a size 11. And now I want kind of a lighter shade of that. So I'm going to mix quite a bit of water, a little bit of the magenta, and then see if we can kind of feather that down and get this nice, beautiful purpley color to kind of show through a little bit. And it's almost like a watercolor effect. It's kind of like a bleeding, blending color. And then there's kind of some random painterly spots around those markings as well, so you can add those in. It goes kind of all the way around the edges of the petal, but not here in the corners. Just kind of feather it down. Okay, so that side looks good. Oops, we made a little bit of mistake here, so I'm just gonna kind of blend that in. All right, that's fine. Okay, so now let's kind of let that dry a little bit. And then let's move over to the orange one, and we want the darkest value of orange here. So I'm gonna take this Vandyke Brown and mix it with a little bit of the orange red and see what we get for that color. Basically, I want to mix up a really dark red. That will be a pretty contrast to this flower. So we might take a little bit of the magenta and a little more. So it's magenta and a orangey red and then a brown shade, cool brown. And then see if that will give us like a maroon color. Okay. Pretty good. Maybe add a little bit more red in there. And I'm gonna put in a little bit of black. We'll take a tiny bit of black. Hopefully we won't overpower it. Black is such a strong color, so it's so easy to kind of just turn it too far to black. Let's see what that does. So that turned into very much a brown. So let's add a little bit more of this red. Okay, still kind of brown. I'm gonna put some magenta. Okay, and just a little bit more red. Okay, so let's add that. So we're doing the same thing with this color, just kind of putting it in different, kind of along the edge. And let's see, this flower, it's got a little bit of a different design. So it's got this mark here, and then the other petals don't really have that shade. So we'll just put it in here, and I might put it on this side too, and maybe this side as well. Again, I would turn your paper there and then just kind of blend it in. Okay. All right, so let's make this simple. So let's add in the lines now. So these pansies, they have beautiful stripes in the middle, and let's put those in. So I'm going to use a liner brush. It's that really long brush. The bristles are very long. So let's take that dark purple color, and for this brush you just roll the paint on. Okay, and then looking at the reference, so hopefully this will give me some really light thin lines. I think this is the best brush to use for thin lines. And I'm just going from the center and pulling it out. And then if you look closely, there's kind of little branches that come out as well. And I'm going to reload the brush and then come out to the side. So kind of think about the pattern that it's making. I see kind of 3 marks, and the one in the middle is the longest, and then it's got shorter lines around it. And then I'll do that same thing. So a longer line in the middle, 2 shorter lines on the side, and then smaller lines to kind of connect everything. Okay, and then I want a really bright, beautiful red for the center of this one. So I'm just going to take that straight red, mix it up with a little bit of the darker red, and then roll the brush. And this one, it has a lot of lines. So I'm just going to come out, and you can see that beautiful, delicate, really thin line that this brush allows you to get. And I'm just going to feather that out. And it looks like my paper is still a little bit wet, so you'd probably want to let that dry before you do this. And it's actually better to start from the center and then come out, because when you come out, it almost ends, the line almost ends at a point. So start at the center and pull your stripes out. Okay, and that you can see that gives you a really beautiful effect. Okay, so at this point you could go back and maybe with a spotter brush, and you could take like a neutral brown shade, and you can kind of just give a little bit more definition to the center, and just kind of go around your sketch, those kind of stamen marks that were in the middle. You can just kind of paint around those just to give a little bit more detail and to make your pansies look more realistic. Okay, and then you could go back and add some different colors, some varieties of tones. Maybe I wanted to take some of that orangey red and put it in on top of this one. And just kind of blend that in with a damp brush. Again, working fairly quickly because the acrylic, it dries really fast. Okay, and that just gives you kind of another layer of interest and another layer of color. Okay, so we'll call that done. These are just some beautiful fall color pansies that you can paint. So I hope you give this a try. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to see more painting tutorials, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.